Warning, I'm going to rant. If you want a calm, cool, and collected educational video about MS, this is not it. Maybe watch the video I put out next Monday. I'm really frustrated with some MS neurologists, and I want to get some stuff off my chest. And if you want to hear about that, don't turn away, because that starts right now. Howdy! Thanks for learning about MS with me, Boster. In today's video, I want to share with you a case, a patient that I recently saw in consultation at the Boster Center, and one that has really been playing on my heartstrings and in my mind. To be blunt, I am super frustrated with the doctors that cared for her leading up to when I met her the other day. And she has ended up in a bad way, and I think it could have been avoidable with a more careful hand. Today, I want to talk about how I believe MS doctors should be held to a higher standard and how we need to be self-advocates as we go through this journey of multiple sclerosis. Let's jump in. So let me share with you a little bit about this amazing person that I got to meet. This woman is in her early 50s. She works as an administrative assistant, works full-time, and she has a dynamic personality. I truly enjoyed talking and meeting her. She shares that she first had symptoms of numbness of her leg way back in 1999. She was seen by her primary care, who appropriately referred her to a neurologist, who appropriately did an MRI of the brain. They said, "We see spots concerning for MS, but we're not comfortable making a diagnosis." She saw a second neurologist who said the same thing, said, "Okay," and she went about her life. She continued to lead her life, and then in 2003, she woke up completely numb on one side and a little bit clumsy on that side. This was much more severe compared to that first event. She again was seen by doctors who referred her to neurologists who did MRIs, and they said, "Lady, this is multiple sclerosis." She was started on disease-modifying therapy in 2003 with an interferon beta shot, which she says she took religiously. She was very proud of the fact that she was very adherent with her medicine. Now, despite taking her medicine appropriately, she shares that she had multiple MS attacks, oftentimes requiring steroids. And she took this interferon injection from 2003 all the way to 2008, having about one attack a year. However, in 2008, she had 2 attacks in 1 year, and she was fed up with it, and she insisted that her doctor put her on a different medicine. And after her insistence, he went from Rebif onto Copaxone. So now she's injecting Copaxone once a day, starting in 2008. I saw her this past week in 2023. She is still injecting Copaxone once every day, the 20 milligram formulation. Now I asked her, how did things go on Copaxone? And she said, well, pretty good. I said, did you have any attacks? She said, well, I have had several attacks on Copaxone, but they've given me steroids for it. Now seeing this woman, she's seated in a wheelchair, and she has use of her right arm, but she doesn't really have very good use of her left arm, and she can't really move her legs. She's very severely affected by multiple sclerosis. And I asked her, when did you start to use a cane? Now she shared that she started to use a cane back in the early 2000s. This is when she was still on Rebif and having an attack once a year. I asked her, when did you transition to a walker? She says 2009, shortly after she started her Copaxone injections. I said, when did you use a wheelchair? 2013. Next, we took a look at her MRIs. And her MRI of her brain was terrifying. As you can see on the screen, she has a heavy T2 burden of disease, meaning there are a lot of white spots. Keeping in mind that each of these white spots represent a time when the immune system attacked the brain and caused brain damage. We also see that she has a very significant central atrophy, that her brain volume is way smaller than it should be in her early 50s. This is a brain that has accrued neurological disease over a long period of time, despite being on MS therapies. Low efficacy therapies that unfortunately are not amazing at shutting down MRI activity. Other drugs that she was not offered can. Here we see her cervical spinal cord. Again, it's terrifying to look at. She has an extremely heavy burden of disease, and you can see the white spots riddled throughout her spinal cord. When I look at this, it makes me so sad knowing that she was left on MS therapies and having cord disease, and the therapy wasn't changed. When I started to ask her about her quality of life and chronic symptoms, it again made me really sad. I feel as if she had been gaslighted medically. When I asked her about her bladder function, she said, well, I am incontinent of urine daily, But, I'm getting older and they told me that's just something I should expect. Absolutely not. That is not okay. When I talked about fatigue, she said, oh my goodness gracious, my fatigue is profound. And when I look at her med list, nobody's treating her fatigue. Nobody's offered her a stimulant. It's really, really frustrating. Here's the problem. This woman was not seen in the 14th century. She was seen in the modern era. She was not seen in a rural place without doctors. She's seen in a giant city of over 1 million people with a bunch of neurologists that all specialize in MS. She was seen by not 2, but 3 different neurologists. All of them have MS patients in their practice. She was allowed to languish. She was kept on low efficacy therapies despite having attacks, despite accruing disability, despite MRI activity, and despite having symptoms which were eroding the quality of her life. The whole time she was seen by these doctors, in no clinic note did it say anything negative. There was never a time saying, oh no, this isn't working, or she's having breakthrough disease. It was as if, well, heck, she has MS, so what do you expect? I sit here today as I make this video for you in almost May of 2023, and I want to tell you that's not right. In the modern era, with an early diagnosis and with the earliest application of the most effective medicines, we should never ever see an outcome like this. We should not tolerate one attack. We should not tolerate the accrual of disability. We should not tolerate even one new spot on the MRI. And we certainly should not tolerate someone having incontinence of urine or being so exhausted that they can't function during the day. If you have MS, or if a loved one has MS and you're listening to me right now, I implore you, you must become a self-advocate. You must demand of your neurologist a zero tolerance policy. Don't let them keep you on low efficacy drugs, particularly not if you're breaking through. I need you to be a self-advocate because I'm scared that neurologists are asleep at the wheel. We really should be held to a higher standard. My name's Aaron Boster, and thank you for letting me get all this off my chest. I promise that next week's video will be much more level-headed and educationally focused. And until that time, I want you to be safe. Take care.